All right, Ollie, my brother, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for your time on this cool and chilly, and it's been an eventful Sunday morning for me. So again, thank you for your time. And just a quick backstory for those who are listening. I met Ollie in a sauna just randomly. I think it was a couple Sundays ago, a couple of weeks ago. We met in a sauna, and what I found peculiar was the fact that you were sitting in, I think it was half lotus or full lotus in the sauna, and I was like, oh yeah, this guy seems interesting, and I bet he is a yogi. And lo and behold, we started talking about some interesting things. So I asked Ollie if he would want to come on and do a podcast, have a conversation, because I wanted to learn more about you, because I really don't know anything about you besides that interaction I had. So with that being said, could you introduce yourself to me and those who will be watching or listening to this podcast? Just give us a quick and a brief introduction to who you are, Ollie.
Sure, Jake. Yeah, well, it was an interesting conversation we had in that sauna. I really enjoyed it, actually. I thought, oh, it's someone I've got some affinity with. Thinks kind of similar to me. Um, yeah, me. Well, I've been last couple of years, 19, 20 months, I've been traveling, just living in a van, traveling around the country. Um, Often in the winter, I'll find places to stay, friends, or do some woofing. But really just been a free spirit for the last 20 months, and for a while before that as well. Um, I just realized for a few years before I started traveling, I started having quite major things happening to me, like uh, getting pushed out of my job. Um, and I thought I was doing really well at it. And having a business that didn't go very well, having to move house several times. In my broke up with my girlfriend, my father died, and I just started to realize I think the universe is trying to tell me something, and I'm not listening. I'm not hearing it. So I just stopped for a while and just waited till I just got a sense of it. Where's the flow? Yeah, what seems to be the easiest direction to take. I'd also been asked to leave where I was living, so I had to move sometime. And that's where I got a sense of I could go down the South Island. Had a friend that was going down, and I thought, I actually don't need to come back. I could just keep traveling. Most of my life, most of my adult life, I've been following some sort of spiritual path or other. Been just aware that there's more to life than just the physical, what we see with our five senses. But it's always quite hard to grasp what it is. So I'd looked at Buddhism and practiced meditation. I'd done lots of yoga, kept doing yoga and meditating most of my life. Looked at the Hare Krishnas and the Baha'i faith and all sorts of different things. I was in a Christian group for about 20 years. Got booted out of that about 7 or 8 years ago. And I was married to someone in the group, and that the marriage finished at the same time. So it was like all of a sudden it was like the universe was saying, time to move on again, Ollie.
All right. And could I just interject there very briefly, Ollie, and just ask you, what were you doing for work, and how were you, because you said you were pushed out of work. So how were you pushed out of work?
Well, I was a computer trainer. I did an IT degree in my mid-30s, and found I didn't really like sitting in front of a computer screen all the time, but I like working with people. So I taught other people how to sit in front of a computer screen.
Yeah.
So I was a tutor, a trainer in a private company, a healthcare company, and I would train the nurses, the frontline staff, how to use the software. Whenever there's a new bit of software coming out, I would do the user guides and do the training rollout for it. Lots of pressure there. lots of tension. Often when there's new software been rolled out, then the project's been going for 6 or 9 months, and they just want to do the training and get it finished. And I get brought in the last month or so, and there's pressure to finish. Then, so it was, it was always quite a bit of pressure. And it was kind of funny. I was trying to do lots of videos for training, and it just seemed I was getting held up all the time, and I just got lots of pressure from my boss to do it. And also the team that I was with was, I just didn't connect with them very well. And then my boss, who wasn't actually part of the team, he was in Auckland, kept saying, "Oh, I've been hearing that you're not getting on very well with the people there." And I kept thinking, "Oh, what am I not doing? I'm just getting on with my job." Yeah, so I'm not quite sure what happened there, but my boss was putting a lot of pressure on, got pretty gnarly. I was taking audios of all our conversations, and after about 3 months, I thought, I've got enough evidence here to take him to court. So I got hold of a legal executive, and they said, well, the best thing to do is actually just negotiate a settlement. It's a lot quicker. So I basically just got paid out and left within a week of that starting.
Right, and that's quite unfortunate to hear. But in saying that, as you said, it's probably a sign or just a signal that you should be doing other things, or you're meant to be somewhere else. And I can actually attest to the way that you were talking about how, how we are almost compelled to be in certain groups and environments, especially when we're in a workplace. We don't get to, we get to choose the workplace, let's say that, but the people and the environment. And I think the different personalities and the different interests of the people and how they are living their life really impacts you and them if you aren't on the, let's say on the same wavelength, for lack of a better term. So I've actually experienced that so many times, like people living unconsciously, they're making really unwise decisions in their life, and that's just impacting themselves. But then it also impacts you, because you have to be around these people, and it's not to denigrate them and say that we're better than them or put ourselves on a pedestal, but it's I think that the culture of a society today is very toxic. I think even just in the mainstream, I think as a whole, it's become so toxic. So I'm actually glad you got out of there. And
me too.
yeah, I want you to take us back to your upbringing. I thought we could start there, and because I'm interested to know where did you grow up, and how would you describe your experience as a child? So talking about your family dynamics, school, and was religion involved, spirituality, and anything else you'd like to share with us? Who was Oli at a young age growing up?
Well, my dad was in the Air Force, so we went between sort of West Auckland, where there's 2 Air Force bases, and the Manawatu Bulls Ohakea a couple of times. He was kind of a man's man, pretty tough. He was a equivalent of a sergeant major in the Air Force. He's a warrant officer. There was one point, so he was kind of hard to connect with. He didn't understand anyone who was weaker than him. Mum and dad fought quite a bit, so it was a bit of a dysfunctional family. But Mum tended to hold things together. She was pretty jovial, easygoing, always knew how to make us happy. She was a bit religious. Dad wasn't. She would go along to various Anglican or Catholic, Anglican and Presbyterian. But I think I always got the sense that why she was going there was because she liked singing in the choir or playing the organ. And, as far as this stuff about God was concerned, it didn't really, she was never able to explain it very well, excuse me. I said to her, why does God have so many houses? And she had no idea. And I said, well, where is God, I remember one day sneaking up the front of the altar at one church we were going to, thinking, well, if God's around, he must be up here somewhere. And thinking, if I get too close to this altar, I might get struck down. But I really wanted to find out, well, what is this God? And then I remember lifting up the big cloth that was over the altar, and I found out it was just a table underneath, and it was empty.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of sort of seeking for me from me at that time.
Can I just ask you, how did you deal with the fighting when your parents were having conflict? How did you deal with that?
Well, they were actually quite good at keeping it away from us kids most of the time. I only ever saw them have a physical fight once. But there was kind of lots of tension around just in the background. And that was actually quite hard to deal with. You just didn't quite know what was going on. Things seemed okay, but something was telling me they weren't okay. So I don't know if I dealt with it very well, to be honest. I do remember once having an argument in the car when we were traveling. I was about 12 at the time and getting quite good with speaking. I said something, just said one sentence, and it was like it shut them both up. They both understood, oh yeah, that's the answer. And I felt quite good about that. So I tried it or a short while later, I forget how long, and Dad wasn't too keen on that. He gave me a clip around the ears. So yeah, I don't know if I dealt with the family situation so well. It really wasn't until I'd been an adult that I realized that there was problems in the family and it had affected me. And I had some, probably not a huge amount of trauma, but some trauma that I needed to work through in order to live a good life, in order to really focus on what I wanted to do. And to some extent, I'm still working through that. There's been some mother issues come up just recently. But I believe we all have these, and it's part of life to deal with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, my understanding of it would be that, the work isn't done until it's done. And Sri Ramana Maharshi said that, it's not until you, let's say, purify 51% of your karma that you become liberated. So, and then I think even just to think about that concept of, the way that he lived his life, living in a cave, renouncing the world and his everything in the material world. And then to, let's say, purify 51% of his karma. It's interesting just to think about the amount of karma that could potentially be with one person, with each and every one of us. You know what I mean? So I find that interesting to contemplate, actually. And I'm interested to hear about the religious aspect, because you said you were in a Christian group, and I think that's maybe potentially where you met your wife. So did you join that, and was that stemmed from your upbringing because your mother used to sing in the choir? Is that how you found the church and Christianity? And what was your experience like?
Not at all, no. My experience as a kid and as a teenager was that it was just an empty, hollow, it's just hypocrisy, Christianity. There's no no reality there at all. I remember talking to the padre, excuse me, the chaplain on Ohaki Air Force Base. He was friends with my parents because Mum played the organ there. Came around for lunch one day, and he'd had a message on, it was the Battle of Britain Day, I think it was, and he said that, the Battle of Britain finished on a certain date. And I'd been studying it. I loved history, and the books that I'd read said it finished on another date. It's probably kind of arbitrary because it was probably went for pretty much the whole war. But anyway, as a 12-year-old, I piped up and said, you said this, but my book says, or history book says this. And he just, the way he responded, he just fobbed it off. He didn't acknowledge that he might be wrong or have a discussion about it, or show me that he was right or anything like that. Just kind of fobbed me off. And after that, I just thought, well, if that's, a Christian, padre, official guy, then fuck Christianity, it's just empty and meaningless. So yeah, as a teenager, I was never into religion at all. I was into drugs and booze and hunting and whatnot. But as I got into my 20s, I started seeking for more reality. And to me, sitting, meditating and going within, finding that peaceful space within was a lot more real. Chanting Hare Krishna just seemed to get me into a lot better space than I'd ever been into before. But it just so happened, I was in Auckland for a few years, and I moved back to Palmerston North, which had become hometown for me. And I came across an old friend that I'd worked with who had become a Christian. And he was with a group that was not mainstream at all. In fact, most mainstream groups called them a cult or had all sorts of names for them. But, I'd been with groups that are called cults heaps. And to me, that didn't matter. What mattered was my experience. And this guy actually helped me to call on the name of the Lord Jesus, which is the only name he could work with. And I said, they're all names of God. And he wasn't able to cope with that, but he said, well, this is the name I can work with. And if you think they're all names of God, let's just work with the name of Jesus. So I did for a while. And the more I started to call on the Lord Jesus, I started to read the Bible, meet with these guys. I just thought, hey, these guys have got something. They're actually touching something of reality here. So that's what I'm here for. I was here for reality. And that's what I'd always been going through all those other religious groups for, looking for reality. That's why I went up to that altar when I was about 10 or so. Is there God here? Is there reality? Is there what is here?
Yeah. So how long did you let's say follow or just involve yourself with the Christian faith?
So I was with them for a couple of years, and then I saw lots of things that weren't right or that I didn't like. So I left.
Could you just, sorry to interrupt you here, could you just share an example of something that you didn't like or something that didn't resonate with you?
Okay. We were very much into being spontaneous. Touching our spirit is what we called it. You read something in the Bible or some ministry that was interpreting the Bible, and you'd come to a meeting and you'd share it. You might have been thumbing through the hymn book and you loved a song, so you came to the meeting and you shared that. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a croaky throat.
Oh, that's okay.
And I found the meetings started to become very unspontaneous. And they became very long and drawn out, and they became like a labor that we did because this is what we did on Sunday. So I approached the leading ones about it, and they basically just said, sit down and shut up. You just got to accept that this is how God has arranged it now, and don't complain, sort of stuff.
Right. And is that so? Having experienced those types of interactions, where did you go from here? Like, did you go to another faith? Did you decide to pull back? How did you leave, let's say, the Christian path and discover another path?
Mm-hmm. Well, you could say I left them twice. After 2 years with them, I left for about 10 years. I just started to doubt that God was actually, what was it? It was actually really, really covering the situation. I started to doubt that God was working in the situation, started to lose my joy. So I just, excuse me, started to look at astrology, get some other friends that were more into New Age things. I ended up getting a job at a a New Age retreat center in Taupo for a while, and that took me up to Auckland again. And I joined a community that were very much into therapy. That was a big eye opener for me. That was a big help to help me. I learned to communicate with people a lot better, learned to understand myself a lot better. Started on a path of self-exploration. But I always felt like I had something to complete with that bunch of Christians that I was with. And eventually, I had a girlfriend that was also a backslidden Christian. So we started talking about it, and that brought me to go back to it. I found that joy again that I had with them, but it always seemed like there was this hierarchy there that was kind of keeping me down in a way. But I got married into the group, so I was kind of stuck there for a while. And part of the philosophy there is marriage is where God deals with you. And my goodness, yeah, the wife I really got dealt with a lot. We were very, very different. So after 15 years of marriage, she left me, and now I'm really grateful for her for doing that. And I also had at the same time had an altercation with one of the leading ones. I was in Wellington at the time, so they just booted me out. So that was the end of Christianity for me.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I just want to ask you, what are your thoughts on marriages, relationships, companionships? Whether that's male, female, male, female. What are your thoughts on relationships themselves? Do you think they are needed in this life, in this experience for majority of people? And do you what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think everyone's got their own path, and I don't know what anyone else's path is really, so I can't judge. I can't say for anybody, but I know that for me, the one thing being married did teach me is it's really nice to have someone there who knows me really well, who I know really well, can share things with, share life with. So for me, since then, it has been a path of finding another partner. And for me, I find that it's really lovely to have someone that you know really well, you can open to, you can share your hopes and fears and your highs and your lows. Someone who's really willing to be open to you, and you can get deeper and deeper into your loving with them. Now, this might not be for everybody, I don't know. And as far as, some people might prefer it with the same gender or whatever, that's fine as far as I'm concerned. It's all, if you're getting into your loving, then that's awesome, I think. I met a woman a while ago when I was still just out of the church, and I was kind of still holding on to those old concepts of what relationships should be. And I did a outward bound course, and I met a woman there who had just left her husband because she fell in love with this woman. And something just touched my heart. I just thought, wow, she's found love. Now, I didn't kind of agree with lesbianism, but at the time, but I thought, she's found love, and that's awesome. So that sort of started to break down my concepts, because I realized if you find love, then that's awesome. That's part of what life is about, I think.
Right. And I'd just like to go back to you were speaking about New Age, and to be honest with you, I'm not too familiar with New Age, though I've seen and read a few things. I want to ask you, how do you discern from practices that you're willing to engage in and you're willing not to engage in? So I remember I watched a New Age documentary And there was this I forgot her name. I think her name was Unicult. And this individual said that she could contact extraterrestrial beings and um, contact things that aren't in this, let's say, this material plane, or that we can see through the eyes. And to me, it just came off strange. Like, once I seen that, and I seen her in this documentary, I decided to go and investigate her a little bit more. And to me personally, she didn't seem grounded. She didn't seem genuine, and she didn't seem aware. It was almost like she was lost in her own little reality. Well, she actually wanted her unicult to become a religion and the cult of the world, but she just had people following her and doing these interesting activities that I personally don't see benefit in. So I just want to ask you, have you had experiences like this? And I've also seen they'll have at a New Age festival in America, they had men like walking on the ground on their hands and knees, sort of acting like monkeys. And I'm not here to denigrate. I find it peculiar and interesting. Like, that's something I wouldn't do personally. Have you had any experiences like that?
Yeah, a little bit, just a little bit. There's some Christian groups that have been through phases of that sort of thing happening. And it always did strike me as a bit kind of like, well, what's the point of that? Yeah, didn't seem quite of God, but I don't really know. What's been happening for me is initially I was kind of skeptical about people being used as a channel for some spirit to speak through, because in some ways you're giving your body to something else, and what actually is it? We don't know. I did meet somebody just down in Otaki last year, lovely woman who did channel other voices, and I had a few sessions with her, and they seem fine. They're quite healing in a way. And I know another guy who had a lot of sessions with her, and he seemed to get a lot out of it. She didn't seem that kind of what I would call spiritually evolved. She was very much a people pleaser, just trying to make money out of her gift. But it was useful to some people. So who am I to judge, really? That's what I realised, that I can't judge her. She's got her own path. Yeah, I was kind of skeptical 10 years ago about this sort of thing, but I've just become more open to, well, maybe there's a place for it. I don't know. I know of lots of people who do kind of channel writing, where they just let their hands go, and yeah, if it's working for them, that's wonderful.
Right. Sorry, just to ask you again, how do you discern whether or not something or an activity is something you're willing to engage in? Is it intuition? Do you like to know the background of the teacher, of someone who's taking this specific activity? Do you like to hear other people's experiences, or just watch? Like, I mean, for me, I'm not saying everyone is like this. I'm just saying we do have people like this young lady, and I'll say her name again, Unicult, who I think is just completely. I think if you watch her content, I think you'll see that she isn't spiritually grounded, and there's no foundation of footing for her. And it seems that it would be very unwise and very unsafe to follow her teachings. Even I think even just the uni cult, her wanting to create a cult, her wanting to be the world religion and wanting to run this cult and control everyone. How do you discern whether or not you're willing to engage with a specific activity
Okay.
or person?
How do I discern whether it's some teaching or practice might be good for me? Um, it just resonates with me in some way. And if, for a practice, it's got to either, it feels useful, it is, or there's such a lot of good theory around it that it gives me, I think, well, this is worth practicing for a while to try it. I've recently engaged with a woman who's a classical tantric yoga teacher, and it just happened to connect with her through the anti-mandate protests, stuff that she was putting up on Facebook about it. I just went, wow, yeah, yeah, I agree with that. It just sounds just right. This is just, that's where I'm coming from too. So started to look at what she was doing more. Yeah, it just has to resonate. People like Baba Ram Dass, they've always resonated with me. Eckhart Tolle, recently been getting into, what's his name? Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, mainly because I can just see what they're saying and it just resonates. Yeah.
Right. And to be fair, like I obviously pointed out one of the baddest examples that I've come across in the New Age movement. I just think safety is paramount, and we need to discern who to follow and who not to follow. And obviously, yeah. I absolutely connect with Ram Dass, Eckhart Tolle, Dr. Joe Dispenza as well. Incredible souls, like incredible people, incredible work, and incredible insight and wisdom that they've been able to share. And what's cool about it is the fact that not only have they attained these specific like modalities and insights, but I find it fascinating and like invigorating that they are able to give it off, like they are able to express it in such a way that is so fine, delicately tuned to those who are ready and willing to hear it. That's what I find incredible, because it's one thing to have the experiences yourself, but to actually portray it and express it in a manner that the people will be able to understand and comprehend is it just takes a whole different skill. So I really respect that about them, and especially Ram Dass. He's someone that I've taken stock of a lot, actually, in my experience. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And you were speaking about the mandates and meeting this.
Can I just share one other thing?
Yeah,
I have
absolutely.
noticed that there's an awful lot of stuff out there related to kind of new age stuff. And yeah, there's people making money out of it. There's genuine people. There's just people on a bandwagon. And, humanity has got a side that's quite superstitious. So we have to be careful of our own superstitiousness. We've all got an ego that's, we need the ego to keep us grounded on the earth. I think we talked about that in the sauna a bit, just for practical living. But we need to make, for a spiritual journey, it needs to be not in the driver's seat, maybe the passengers. But so when having an awareness of our superstitious nature, our ego that's going to try and either keep us down or keep us sort of, down is not the word. Our ego tends to just keep us in the physical realm a lot. And we need to be aware of other people are struggling with this too. And they might have come to a place where, oh, I know something and I can teach this and I can make some money out of it. And they might know something and be able to teach something, but there could be ego in there as well. So you really have to use your own discernment. And they say that you're ready for the teachers that come along, but still you need to use your own discernment.
Absolutely. And like it's very paramount that people understand that, the New Age movement was created by Satanists. Helena Blavatsky, she was a 33rd degree Freemason, and Morals and Dogma, Albert Pike, which is pretty much the Freemason Bible. So he talks about who they worship, and they worship Lucifer. But it's just very paramount, that people do their research and understand what they are doing, because, and this ties in with the UN, with the coming age of a new religion and a new God. So it's just, yeah, I think discernment is paramount, and just being aware of what you're actually doing, because we see a lot of people, especially those in the New Age, who have no foundation. I think foundation is so important, and to be grounded. I've seen a lot of stories of, maybe you've seen them too. It's like New Age goes back to Christianity, and I find that interesting. I'm just like, I wonder why that is, but I think it's because, I've listened to a few of their testimonies, and they say that it's because their experience of New Age was, it was all love and light. It was all positivity. It was always, just focus on the positive, never focus on the negative. And a lot of them came up against, let's say, bad spirits or bad entities, and they were afraid. I've never heard of those before, but Christianity and the church speak about, let's say, demons, for lack of a better word. So I just wanted to share that, and I'm not saying that it's wrong or it's right. It's just, we need to discern what is appropriate, and why we are doing the things we are doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I struggle with this term demons and darkness and whatnot, because I often just think that, we create, we're the creators of our universe, in a way. There's something I really enjoyed a few years ago, which helped me hugely. There's a video called Finding Joe. It's on YouTube. It's about based on Joseph Campbell's understanding of mythology. He studied mythology from North American Indians to Celts, Romans, Greeks, Hebrews, and Hindus, and he's consolidated it all. And he said, really, what's going on is, in all of the sort of ancient myths and legends, and the Maori ones too, probably, is there's a story within these stories. There's a story of human growth and development, where the universe brings each one of us on a journey. First of all, we have to grow up as people, and we're in this world. But then once you've grown into this world, once you're about 20 or so, the universe has to start to break down the ego to help you to see there's more to life. And you tend to, it calls you out. Sometimes it's in a, it's just a subtle little calling. Sometimes if you don't hear it, like me, had to have lots of different things that break you down, lose your job, lose your girlfriend, and all that sort of stuff. And as you respond to this calling, the universe takes you on a journey through dealing with your worst fears, dealing with traumas that you've had in you. And often these are come up like demons. The story of George and the dragon fighting this huge thing. Actually, it's yourself. It's your own demons, your own worst fears. Most people have some sort of trauma from childhood. They need to deal with it. They need to face it. They need to work through it. They need to learn to love what happened and love themselves. Now, often we put ourselves down, we criticize ourselves, and some people who have looked at it a little bit will say, oh, this is because my father did this or my mother. But actually, we're doing it to ourselves. And life is taking us through on this journey to face these things. So when we start to face these demons, we realize actually it's just us. And the video talks about once you learn to love your demons, the demons or the dragon has always got a treasure, and the dragon opens this treasure to you. And once you go through that process, then you're able to go back into everyday life. You've gained something, you've changed, you've grown, and you're able to go back and give to the people around you more because you've matured.
Right. And I just want to ask, is shadow work, or, that term, doing the work, important, being on the spiritual path?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I do see people can get caught up in it because it's not the goal. The goal is to mature and to grow and to be able to give back. Or you could say the goal is to realize God within yourself. Then when you realize you are the creator, you are God, then you can give back to the universe. But in order to realize that, you need to go through your shadows, face your shadows, definitely.
Can you give us examples of how your shadow manifested in your life before you addressed it?
Okay. Well, I've been a bit of a people pleaser much of my life. I realized I'm trying to control my own emotions so they don't get, so I don't get too upset. So to control my emotions, I try and make sure other people are happy, and then and that helps me to be happy. So we're all trying to be happy, but we never actually get to that spark of joy that's really in us when you actually get underneath, get to who you really are. I just, that's an ongoing thing for me. I'll give you a really good example of something that I do feel I've worked through. With my father, he was very grumpy man, very critical, judgmental, really hard to live with. He used to put me down a lot of the time. So I left home when I was 17 because we were almost coming to blows. So Mum realised it was time to go. So I said, "Yep, let's get a flat and a job and go." A few years later, though, I realised that I really love him. He's my father, and if I ignore him, if I seethe in resentment toward him, then I'm just going to be resenting myself, and it's going to affect me. So I need to love him somehow. I need to keep loving him. I need to get into that love, but I couldn't cope with the things he said. So I realized I can love him for who he is on one hand, but I don't respect any of the things he says, or very few of the things he says or does. So that really helped me to get into my loving. And I've been able to bring this into most of my relationships now. I love people because they're a person, they're a human being. And I have a great amount of respect for every individual. But, I can still get annoyed with the things they do. I don't stand with a lot of the things that a lot of people do, but in essence, I stand with them because they're human. And that feels really nice for me. Helps me to feel loving. And when there's the opportunity, when I'm around people, I can share that love. So that's
Absolutely.
one thing I've worked through. So far.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us. As I said in a previous podcast, it's difficult for people to be vulnerable. So for you to share that and to share that with all of us, I really appreciate it. Thank you for doing that. How did you begin to work through your shadows, through your trauma? What avenues or routes or practices have you engaged in?
Well, so my early 30s, I did quite a bit of psychotherapy. That was a big help. Something happened in my 20s too. I just realized there's something not right with me. It was more to do with my physical health. So I got into doing lots of detox diets, and I went vegetarian for 3 years. And that, I'm not sure what it did, but it certainly helped my physical health. But it was in my early 30s that I got into psychotherapy a lot. And then I did a lot of beating up my father, beating up cushions as though they were my father and my mother, and yelling at them. And, that got a lot of the tension out that I had. And it also helped me to realize that there's a spark of life in me, that if I keep in touch with that, it brings a lot of joy. The Christian church that I was with, group that I was with, helped me to see that what we termed, we have a sinful nature. So I realized there's a sinful side of me, or there's a corrupt side, there's a egotistical side, and there's a divine side as well. So it really helped me to just see the difference, and when you see it clearly, you can focus on the divine side. Just more recently, I've become more aware of that people-pleasing side of myself. So just finding people that I can share it with. There's a book that I read. I've forgotten the name of the guy who wrote it rather, it's called No More Mr. Nice Guy. That's right. That was a great eye-opener. Another one I'm reading at the moment by Dan Munro, The Naked Truth. He gets into people pleasing in great detail. He's amazing. So right at the moment, I'm doing a intensive sort of tantric, classical tantric yoga course, where we're just focusing on our yoga practice, and we're aware that the more we do this practice, the more we focus on it, the more subconscious things just start to come up. So that's when we're able to talk to the teacher, who's more just a facilitator, really, and we get together online in a group every now and again, and just to share what's going on. We have a Telegram group which we share what's going on. So that's actually been really good to just look at what's coming up for me and share it. Yeah.
How would you describe what yoga is for those who may not know? And I guess there's many different branches of the yoga system itself, but how would you describe that to the general public who have no idea what yoga is or what Tantra yoga is? And when did you begin doing it?
Well, that's a huge topic, Jake. I don't think I could do it justice, really.
We could do layman's terms.
Yeah. Well,
like even for myself, tantric yoga, I'm not too familiar with it.
Yep. Maybe if I start with what the common concepts are, and then work from there. So commonly, when we think of yoga, as we're doing these postures where we stretch our bodies and whatnot, contort a little bit. In the Hindu, it all comes from Hinduism. So in the Hindu way, that's called Hatha yoga. And there are lots of different branches, lots of different types of yoga. So yoga is about self-realization or enlightenment. So it's a path to enlightenment. So one path is by doing physical exercises, stretches. And for me, it helps to center me. If I've got a physical ailment, it often helps to alleviate those. I've often noticed sore back gets better over the course of a week or so, sore leg and whatnot. So that's one branch of yoga. You've also got Raja yoga, which is more sort of getting into the theory of how to get enlightened and the suffering we're in humanity, and how to get out of it. There is Bhakti yoga, where it's like you're getting to enlightenment through serving others. Bhakti means love, or love, sort of a service type love. There's karma yoga, where you're working out your past karma, past actions. Now, the word tantric yoga has become sort of known as sort of like to do with sex and sexual yoga, where you're supposedly getting heightened states of awareness through having intercourse in a certain way, and you're using breath work and postures and whatnot. I've recently realized that that's actually quite a distorted version of what Tantra means. Tantra literally, I think it means just practices. So it's when you go back to classical yoga, back in the Hindu Vedas, which are scriptures that are sort of several thousand years old, they're just talking about different practices you do to get towards enlightenment, like doing your hatha yoga or your bhakti, or they get into pranayama a lot, which is breathing exercises, meditation. They're all just practices to get towards God realization or enlightenment. That's really what yoga is about.
Right. What do you think drew you to tantric yoga more so than, let's say, your generic vasana or hatha? Is it hatha? How do you say that?
Hatha yoga, yeah.
Hatha yoga. What do you think drew you more towards tantric than most other branches of yoga?
I think it's really just this is what came in front of me, really. I've been doing hatha yoga and meditating and for a long time, and the last few years been getting into more breathing exercises, pranayama. And what's been drawing me there is I do get a sense of something more, especially the breathing exercises. I get a sense of more clarity, more energy going through me. It is subtle, but it's definitely there. So really, it was just the current teacher I'm working with. She talked about Tantra yoga and had a class on classical Tantra yoga. And that helped me to realize, Tantra yoga is not about sex. I mean, all yoga can enhance everything in your life, including your sexual relationship, but that's not the aim of it. That's kind of like a side effect. So really, Tantra, it's just yoga. It's just working towards enlightenment or God realization. And that's what I want to head to. I don't care if it's, standing on my head for a week or doing, dancing with a tutu or whatever it might be. If it helps me to get into a higher state of consciousness, get beyond this physical world without actually leaving it. I don't think that's needed at the moment. I think we need our body to keep on this journey. But so long as I'm heading on that journey of self-realization, I think that's what I'm just using various techniques as tools. And like Ram Dass says, eventually you're going to have to drop those techniques, because if you hold on to them, you're holding on to something in the world. So eventually we're just dropping everything and
absolutely
the universe.
Yeah, wise words. Wise guy, a wise soul. Old Ram Dass. Actually, hearing about his story, I'd be interested to hear about experiences you've had. Maybe we could coin them as breakthrough experiences, or different dimensional experiences. Have you had anything or experienced any experiences such as those?
You mean kind of like out-of-body experiences, or?
Yeah, out-of-body experiences, transcendental experiences.
Yeah, interesting question.
And sorry to interrupt you here. Was there a specific moment for you that just settled all your doubts that there is more? That this experience was so powerful for you that there's no more, let's say, doubt. There's no more doubt in you that there is more because you've had this experience.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I can't say there's any one experience where I went, oh, I really know now. And in some ways, I feel a bit disappointed at that, to be honest. I'd like to have that. But I'm just learning to understand myself. And I think for me, I'm actually quite an intellectual sort of person. So to understand something actually brings a lot of light. To understand something mentally, although, I endeavor to go way beyond my intellect, because I realize that's quite limited. I think recently, one thing that happened for me was I started studying near-death experiences. I read several books on people who've had these experiences, 3 or 4 books, and looked at a lot of YouTube videos, and looked at the research that's been done. There's one group that have got about 4,000 cases of near-death experiences, and they're just looking at the similarities and the differences. And over a period of about 6 months of researching this, I just realized, wow, there absolutely has to be something more. These people are all talking about something that they experienced after they were physically dead. So there is more. You might not be able to clinically measure it at all, but you've got so many experiences saying, and all kind of quite similar. A lot of them are saying they met their dead relatives when they first passed on, and a lot of them are talking about meeting a great white light and going to a place where they felt total unconditional love. And when I heard that, I thought, oh, that sounds like the Bible. God is love. But they sort of expound on it more. It's like they felt totally loved no matter what they did, no matter who they were or what they didn't do. It was just totally unconditional, beyond our concepts. And even a Christian pastor said that when he was clinically dead and he was brought back to life, he said to the doctor, "Why did you do that?" I felt so happy, happier than I ever have. So I realized that there's more. There is more. And I guess for me, I've been looking at, well, how can I have these sort of experiences without clinically going on clinically dying? But maybe that's not my path. I'm not sure. I know meditating often helps people get into a higher state of consciousness if you've been doing it for a long time, or at least scientists who have measured the brain waves of experienced meditators say that something more is happening. There's, Ram Dass talks about his psychedelic experiences with psychedelics, rebirthing. I've done some holotropic breath work, which does get you into an altered state. Now, actually, that's one thing I forgot to mention earlier. That's something I used a couple of years ago to help work through a lot of trauma. But I've got to a state with that where I seem to shut down. So I'm just sort of aware of this. There's something in me shutting down. Anyway, that's something I'm going through.
Right. Could I just ask you here? Sorry to cut you off. What are your thoughts on psychedelics, and do you have any experiences with them allegedly?
Okay. Yeah. Well, from what Ram Dass and others say, they can really open you up to other dimensions. And when I look back on my life, I went through a phase in my late teens where I was smoking a lot of weed and had a bit of acid. I think that time opened me up to more, to possibilities of more. I don't bother with it too much these days. I have tried a few things just over the last couple of years, and I could see it was quite fun, but I didn't have any sort of out of body experience or.
Right. What were they?
I had an acid trip last year. Had 2 tabs. Spent the night out on the beach.
Was that alone with friends?
Yeah, it was on my own. Yeah.
How was that experience taking 2 tabs? Do you know how many UGs that was?
It's probably 220 each. That's what I
440.
understand they were.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you just walk me through that experience? Like obviously the scene is the beach, but like how was the setting for you? Were you on a mattress on the sand? Were you listening to music, or were you just gazing? How did that experience unfold for you? Because I understand that it can last for many hours. What was that
Yeah.
like for you?
Yeah. Yeah. It was an all-night experience. So yeah, I took it and was it, I forget, somewhere in the afternoon, mid-afternoon, I think. And I already had a bag packed, little backpack with a few things, bit of food and drink and extra clothing, and had sort of marked out a track with it that I go to on a map, and just started walking. Did a bit of yoga and meditated at one point. I had an intention of just wanting to know, what was it now? Just wanting to know a higher state of consciousness. Um, but I tended to walk a lot, so that probably kept me in my body a lot. Then it got dark, and realized, yep, I'm going to stay out here. I decided, do I stay or do I go back? And tide was coming in, so it's going to be hard to go back. So I settled under a tree. Then it started to rain. So I went under another tree that was more protective. That's right. And I did have this experience where I was dreaming, and it seemed like something was coming to get me. It felt like something with soft feet, clawed sort of feet, like a cat or something. And I was hearing this snarling, gnarling sort of noise. It could have been a possum, I don't know. But I remember it was in a dream, and then it was like I just woke up scared as anything, and I used the name of the Lord Jesus. No, I didn't start with. I just yelled out at the top of my voice. I thought, I just knew that I'm in control here. So I yelled out at the top of my voice, "Get out of here!" I forget the exact words I used, but I was just strong. And then I started calling, Lord Jesus, you're the highest name. Yeah, there's something in me just knows I've got God with me. I'm okay. I feel quite lucky about that. So after that, I sort of slowly settled back to a bit of a sleep. Yeah, and the next morning got up, and when it was light, started to make my way back to the van.
Right, and I've yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's quite hilarious.
Yeah. So in a way, I was a bit disappointed that I didn't have any sort of like Ram Dass talks about how his body melts, and he realized that there's more than the ego. But anyway, maybe that's not my path. I don't know.
Yeah, but also just thinking about like the wanting itself, like that. If we're looking at it critically, I mean, the wanting itself is egoic. So, I mean, there's if you already have everything, if you already know everything, you don't need anything, right? So it's wanting, the wanting of anything, or the desire for anything is the ego. And also, like, what I find fascinating, even from experience, is you can have these experiences, and what's interesting is the fact that they're still subjective. Like your vocabulary and your like audio and visual understanding and comprehension of what is actually going on is so subjective. So even if you have certain experiences, it's still so hard to comprehend and convey, because again, like it's subjective. So that's something that I find very interesting about the spiritual path, is the subjectivity of it. And the thing is, you could have the same experience as someone else, yet subjectively define it in a different way. So
Mm-hmm.
I find that interesting because I think I like to focus a lot on grounding and having a solid foundation. I feel like that is it's a wise thing to do, to be grounded and to be able to, it's almost like you're building a skyscraper to enlightenment, but you need a strong foundation. Otherwise, the foundation it's built upon it's going to collapse. I don't know if that made sense, but I'm sort of, I guess with these podcasts, one thing I've realized is like you're sort of formulating these concepts and these ideas on the fly. So that's one thing that I've noticed, is just having to try and pull these thoughts and these concepts out of my head and express them in a way that makes sense. Because, in the mind, it's just like there's so many different connections, but getting it out, I find difficult. I don't know if you have that same challenge or not.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that's why I really enjoyed talking with you the other week, and why I agreed to this was to be able to, you have all these thoughts going around in your head, or I do a lot, but to actually put it out helps to solidify it, helps to clarify it. So I think it's really good to talk about your journey through life, whether you think it's a spiritual journey and you want to get to enlightenment or something else. We're all we're all on a journey, so it's really good to just to talk about it. It helps to clarify it.
Even I think the paradoxical nature of it, right? Like you're getting to enlightenment, like you're getting somewhere, like it's already here. So it's such a paradoxical
it is a good one. Yeah.
experience, right? It's like you're trying to get somewhere, but there's actually nowhere to go. And as Ram Dass says, there's actually nowhere to stand as well. So that's interesting, and that is something that needs to be tended to always. You always need to just always be mindful of that, the paradoxical nature of actually you already have it all. It's almost like just sifting out what's been built on top of, or what's been conditioned on top of it. But I spoke with a psychic medium, and her name's Gail Orr, and she's a spiritual healer, and she was speaking about past lives as well. So it's just interesting, like, again, going back to that concept of all this accumulated karma and things that we may not even be aware of right now that we've done in previous lives that still, let's say, air quote, haunt us to this date. So I don't know, it's things to ponder on. And I've seen that you enjoy hiking, camping, festivals. I sort of, done a bit of, let's call it research on your Facebook page. So can you share an experience that you've really enjoyed and that, like an impactful experience that you'll never forget, whether it was hiking, camping, at a festival, or any outdoor activity? Something that springs out to you right now.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's just go to a recent festival. It was actually the first festival I've done in years. I went to Nambassa back in the, I think, early 80s. And I think I was high on acid most of the time and don't remember much of it.
When was this? Sorry.
This year? That was Nambassa years ago.
Years
I'd like to talk about when I first started traveling. When was this? November 2020. The next February, I'd been spending a lot of time just on my own in the bush, in touch with nature. I spent 2 days just naked running around, sort of
modern day Tarzan.
Yeah. Getting in touch with my nature,
Yeah.
Then I came to this festival. I went to Luminate. They call it Lunasa, that one. It's a cut down version of Luminate. This is down top of the South Island. And I went to help them set up. I went a week early and helped to set it up. So I got to know people a little bit, and we formed a little bit of a tribe, about a half a dozen, 8 or 9 people. And then when the festival happened, a few more joined us. And I just found myself in this wonderful bunch of mainly young people that were really loving, really accepting, and just having a good time. They were loving and accepting of me, of themselves, of where they were at. Many of them had instruments or sang. So the highlight of the festival for me was just sitting around after dinner. We'd often gather together about 5 and make a communal meal, and then the instruments would come out, the guitar and the drums and whatnot, and we'd just sit around and have a bit of a jam. And I just felt so accepted there, so loved. I just could hardly believe it. And I thought, gee, I thought this was, you'd get to the stage after many years of dealing with your trauma and transformation, but there was these people, and they were in their 20s, that I just thought, this is awesome. So I've never forgotten that. It's been since then I've just been mixing with a lot of people like that, and that's been a huge change for me. Just finding people that are just loving and accepting of themselves and people around them. And that's how I want to live, really. Living in a realm of love.
Right. And what have you found to be positive, and what have you found to be, if there are any negatives, being in groups like that, being in situations like that? Or maybe you've spoken on the positivities, but if there are any more, please share. But also, have there been any negatives that you've seen, maybe even subtle ones?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, everyone's just where they're at, and not everyone's in a perfect state of loving acceptance. Yeah, some are. There's some that I just got a sense they were just sort of more there for partying, and it was just a bit of fun, and then they'd go back to normal life later. That's probably the only thing I can really think of.
Can you just explain to me, or try to just convey and express the like the feelings, how you are feeling in moments where you really do connect with other people, and how do you know that you've connected with someone you really resonate with? Because I think if you're just out in a mall, I think most people, you're just going to feel very just I think just cold, just okay, going about your day-to-day life. But when do you know for yourself that you've met someone that you really resonate with, and how does that feel?
That's an interesting question. Yeah. It's not always something that happens straight away for me. It's not always like just ding, for me anyway. But it's something that kind of grows. Combination of me just feeling comfortable, and also seeing the other person feeling more comfortable. Yeah, it's a combination of that. When you first meet someone, you might shake their hand, and then you've talked for half an hour and you realize, oh, there's a lot of commonality here. You might have a big hug when you leave, and you realize you made a good connection. It's something that just sort of grows over time, I think. After a while with certain people, you realize you've got more of a connection, and I feel more comfortable to be able to share deeper stuff.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. If I may just, I'll share one experience that I had. I've got a friend, and her name's Renee. She's a spiritual healer and a spiritual teacher, and just an incredible, infatuating soul. And she holds a Friday class here in Hamilton at the Infinity Spiritual Center. She calls it Wairua Wellness Hour, and I think the whole class from start to finish is it's absolutely profoundly, just amazingly therapeutic. And the first time that I met her, I actually just decided that I'll go out on a limb here, and just go to the class. You know, I never done any research about it or what it was about. But when I first met her, we hugged. And I haven't shared this with her. I don't think I've shared this with anyone, but we hugged. And this was the first time I met her. And she was so bubbly and so open. And we hugged and we embraced in the Infinity Center prior to the class. And it was like an experience where it was an experience of unification. You know, there was just love, peace, calm. But there was an experience where experientially and consciously, when we hugged, for me personally, it felt like there was just love, and I immersed, or we unified together in this one field, you know, because we know through meditation you can just, you know, begin to feel the sensations of the body, so the body dissolves. And that's an experience that I had with Renee when I first met her, is hugging and just unifying with her. And there was no one there. She wasn't there. I wasn't there. There was just this unification of love, and that's how I would express it. So, yeah, I thought I'd share that with you.
Yeah, sounds lovely. Sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Hopefully she doesn't think I'm weird, but I feel like maybe she may have had a similar experience. So I met you in a sauna, like such a random place to meet someone. So I'm curious to know, how often do you sauna, and do you follow a specific nutrition protocol nowadays?
Mm-hmm. I love heat. Love anything that gets me warm. I'm a skinny guy, so especially this time of year,
Yeah.
I love the heat.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm just staying with a friend here in Hamilton for a week, and he goes to the sauna quite a bit. So I just went along because he was there. So I've been twice. Well, I came up and stayed with him about 3 weeks ago. We went to the sauna then too. So that's twice in 3 weeks. When I was down in Taupo, I was going to hot pools whenever I could. Love going to the thermal thermal area at Wairua around Rotorua. Yep, anywhere I can get a hot bath or something heat on my body, I love. I do look after my health quite a lot. I've had a few health issues, like I'd often get sinus problems, stomach problems. So really they've forced me to look after my health more and be more aware of my health. And it's been like a blessing in disguise, really. You could say it's a demon that I've had to face. So yeah, I'm very careful with what I eat these days. Back in 1994, I stopped eating anything with wheat in it and dairy products. And that's almost eliminated getting sick over the winter. Before that, I used to get a cold or the flu at least twice every winter. More recently, I've started to get sinus problems over when it gets cold and wet. So I'm now having to look at what's causing that. Actually, this winter I've done quite well. Last winter was awful. I also very careful with what I eat because I've got a bit of a sensitive stomach. You know, if I go to the pub and start eating chips and then drinking and then eating more chips, I'm burping and I'm feeling uncomfortable. I don't want to lean forward because it feels horrible. I have to lean back and then I can't hear people and then I'm not enjoying myself. So, so I tend to eat a lot of vegetables, a lot of salads. I'm pretty much vegetarian. I've just started eating a bit of meat the last couple of weeks after being vegetarian for the last 2 years. And I went vegetarian not because I really wanted to, but I was having some stomach troubles, feeling really uncomfortable and doing smelly farts and wondering what was going on with me. And someone took me to a Hare Krishna meal, and it just felt so good in my stomach. I thought, oh, I've got to try this a bit more. So I did a few vegetarian meals for myself at home, and I just felt so good. I just thought, well, you know, my brain likes the meat, but my stomach doesn't at the moment. So I'm going to follow my stomach. So it's helped me to really just be in touch with my body more. What's my body want? And that's helped me a lot, just to, instead of just going for what I normally have, just going, well, what's my body eating? What's it feel like at the moment? And that's really been a great exercise in self-awareness, which in a way that's the spiritual journey, is just becoming more aware of yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And they have a Hare Krishna here. It's you may already know, but Mantra Lounge every Friday from 6 till 9.
Oh, okay.
They'll do bhakti yoga for half an hour. Then they'll have a dharma discussion with one of the monks,
Mm-hmm.
and then a little bit more bhakti.
Mm-hmm.
And then they actually prepare the meal while the bhakti and the dharma discussion is going on. And amazing food. It's just it's very delicious, and obviously it's vegan as well. I want to ask you, and I just want to get pick your brain on, and maybe your heartstrings on veganism, vegetarianism, and veganism, because in the, I guess in the spiritual community, there are a lot of vegans, vegetarians. They say that they don't want to eat the meat that's, because it's suffering. They've probably come through slaughterhouses and they've suffered dearly, and
Mm-hmm.
and they don't want to consume the suffering, which is the meat. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, good question. Um, I see life as suffering. Back in the 70s, I read a book called The Secret Life of the Plants, where this guy who wrote the book he started out as a cop who ran the lie detector test. And one day after everyone was gone, he, for some reason, put the lie detector test onto a plant. And then he thought, well, what do I do now? And he had a cigarette, and he said, oh, I'll stub my cigarette butt out on the plant. And the lie detector test went crazy. So the plant knew. So, can you imagine a wheat field with the combine harvester coming, or a field of carrots when they're all about to be pulled up? They're suffering. So even if you're a vegan, you're going to cause suffering. And personally, I don't know. For some people, being a vegan may be the best thing. I haven't chosen to go that path as yet. When I was vegetarian, I was eating a bit of fish and some eggs as well. So I'm not vegetarian because I'm considering the suffering of animals. I'm vegetarian because that's what it feels like my body needs. And I'm just becoming more aware of my body's needs, and becoming more aware of me. So personally, I'm not in favor of pushing a certain philosophy of how you should eat onto other people. But I do think that if people were more aware of what they ate and more aware of what it was doing to them, they would live a lot healthier, and we'd have a lot more people, less people going to hospital. Things like diabetes is largely because of the way we eat, heart problems. You go to the supermarkets and you see aisles full of biscuits and sugar water and Coke and Fanta and whatnot. It's just crazy what people put in themselves sometimes, the white bread and the highly processed food. And but I've got to say, I have to respect other people. That's their journey, and if that's where they're at, then who am I to judge? It's better just to leave them for their journey. If they want some help, if they want some advice, I'm really happy to tell them, talk to them. But even I'm staying with a guy at the moment. He's had a few health issues and he's changed his diet, but I do notice he drinks an awful lot of coffee. I think he lives on coffee just about. But he's changing, he's growing, he's becoming more aware. So if he asks, or if it feels right to share something, I will. And but if it doesn't, then I just have to respect their journey.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I was thinking about, or should we say, the thought arose. Nah, but just thinking about uh, the empathetic nature of those who don't want to consume that suffering. I think that is something to respect and to just recognize. That they do feel a lot of compassion and love for the animals, and obviously it's a blanket statement, but there are like some of the vegans that I've come across. I find it interesting, like how they can be empathetic towards animals, yet the complete opposite towards human beings, those who aren't
Yes,
vegans.
it's such a good point.
So it's fascinating. You actually think about, it's almost like they're virtue signaling, or maybe you have to speak with a psychologist or a psychoanalyst about what is actually going on mentally for them, because you can show empathetic nature, but through your actions of not eating meat, but then just do the complete opposite and treat other human beings in a way that the animals are being treated obviously not to the gravity that the animals are going through the slaughter homes, and all the suffering that they experience, but you're causing suffering to humans. And it's just interesting, like how you can do one virtuous thing, one good thing, but yet in other avenues of your life, you're doing completely unwise things. It's so interesting. Like I think about what would a perfect human look like, and it's almost like a perfect human would look like someone just living in a cave and not actually just completely renouncing the world, because sorry, I'll leave that thought there. It's just, I don't know, that just came out of nowhere.
No, it's good thoughts, and I kind of feel like I could say something really radical here that might offend a lot of people.
Yeah, you might as well.
Maybe that could be done. But
radical shots.
It's really admirable to care for other suffering, and doing things like highlighting the suffering of bobby calves on dairy farms. I think is an awesome thing. I'm so pleased that that's been brought to light. And if you must eat meat, kill it in a humane way. And I have been around freezing works some years ago, and I, at least for the sheep that I saw, it was reasonably humane. They'd stun them first before slaughtering them, before killing them. But like I said, life is suffering, and even if you eat a carrot, it's suffering. Now, how would you like to be out of your normal where you live and starving, sitting in this chiller for a week before someone chops you up live? And for some people, their journey, part of their journey is to help alleviate suffering. But for some people, it's a bit of they're still looking outward and blaming other people. There's a huge blame culture in our society. It's the older generation have done this. It's the young people that have done this. It's the government. It's my father's fault. It's my mother's fault. But when you point the finger, there's three pointing back at you. It's like, what's your part in it? Now, to hit that from a slightly different angle, you said to me that the Buddha looked back on all his past lives, 99,000 or something past lives, and they were all in environments of like we have today, where people are fighting, struggling for survival. We're in the fallen, corrupt world. So I've often thought, well, maybe there's something for us to learn here. Maybe we're not supposed to have a perfect world where no one suffers. Yeah. So, and when you look at trauma that most people seem to have from their childhood, no matter how good their childhood is, when they work through their trauma, they become a different person. So maybe our life is to work through certain sufferings to become something more. And maybe we take that into the next life if we have other lives, or something like that. Or maybe that just adds to the consciousness of humanity as humanity slowly evolves. Now, of course, you're going to get people saying, "Oh, so if I was raped when I was 5, does that mean it's kind of my fault and I've got to work through it?" And I never want something like that to happen to anybody. That would be horrendous, and I'm sure it is horrendous for people that it's happened to. But on a physical plane, I would work to stop that happening. But when you step back onto a spiritual level and you can just sort of look at life sort of from a different perspective, then maybe we're all going through these challenges, and some are hugely worse than what others appear to have, and we're all growing from it, and we're growing spiritually. And ultimately, I'm looking for what is really the purpose of life.
Right.
So that's where I get to, is ultimately maybe we're using these traumas to grow in some way.
Right.
I read about someone recently, a woman had her 2 kids in a car, and she jumped out to get some ice creams for them, and someone bashed into the car and the kids were killed. That woman, it was a drunk driver, and that woman now, she says, I have total forgiveness for that guy, and I'm also in total compassion for him. I have no remorse. And she's also working to to highlight drunk driving, so people don't do it so much. So she really gained something through that horrendous situation.
Right, and you do make a good point. The interesting example of rape, but I mean it's an example all the same. The thing is, and we're given the hand we're dealt, and as you said, it could be a difficult hand, but that wasn't our fault. But the way that we move forward from that is 100% on us, and we need to take accountability and complete ownership of that. So yeah, absolutely, man. We're given what we're given, and it's what we make of it that really counts. And the thing is, I've noticed, like in my experience, there's ups, there's downs, there's lefts, there's rights, horizontal, vertical.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But if you're genuine about taking care of yourself, then you will make it through. And it's just such a beautiful thing. And it is such a beautiful thing, actually, to see people work through their trauma, work through their addictions, work through things in their life that have completely disabled them maybe when they were younger, and just to see them transmutate the suffering and the energy and the hate and the sorrow and the sadness, and to see that completely change into openness, love, a willingness to experience. That's beautiful, man. So yeah, I do second that. No matter what we experience, it from the moment after that point, that is on us. But although there's going to be a reaction, there's a cause and effect. So that's something that I've found interesting in my own experience, actually, is just how would you say, like, just managing or balancing the art of being human, especially when there's suffering, there's trauma, and there's self-esteem issues, and no confidence, and just all of these things that make you feel like you're not good enough, or you're not worthy, or you can't do something. It's but then to be on the opposite side of the spectrum and to just be completely narcissistic and just to love yourself so much and forget about everyone else, I find that a delicate balancing act in itself. But I've got two questions here for you, two final questions.
My battery's running low on my laptop. I'll just have to try and plug it in. Hold on a minute.
Cool as. And he's gone. All right. Well, I guess that was cut short, but it is what it is. We continue to flow, and we continue to move with the time. So I want to thank Oli Love for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate his time. And look, the thing with me is I guess I'm not really here to rebuttal people and to completely argue and be in these philosophical debates with them. For me, I want to express and allow others to express who they are, and maybe question them in certain aspects of their world paradigm. But I find it incredibly invigorating to me to speak with people from all walks of life. It doesn't matter who it is or what they are or what they're doing. I really enjoy conversating with people and connecting with people on a deep level, on a human to human level. It's so incredible, and it's very healing for me. So I feel very honored and just blessed being able to talk with all these different people and sharing their journeys with them. It's amazing, and I really love doing this. I hope I can continue to do this and continue to do it well and better and better. So thank you, Oli. Thank you so much. I hope this video finds you all well, and may you all be at ease today. May you be loved. Just know that you are loved and you are worthy, and you are enough. So continue to look after yourself and look after those you love. Much love, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.